Um, Jonathan, can you be my mic person if somebody has a question? Um, Otherwise, the people at home will not hear. I'm going to be here till I finish college. Um, so I don't think this is that
Oh no.
Hello. Hi. Okay. Welcome. We're going to get started. Come up here. Thank you, Haley. Okay. My name is Megan. I am the stake music person. And so one of my jobs is teaching music. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to get started with a prayer. We got a new group of people. So I'll go ahead and say that. Father in heaven, we are thankful to have music in our lives. We're thankful to be able to learn about conducting and how we can better improve our skills to use music as a tool in our worship. And we pray for thy help to be able to learn quickly and understand these concepts, and so that we can better our abilities. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, great. So real quick, I want to know who I'm talking to. So raise your hand if you're like a total newbie, you've never really conducted anything before. Okay. Raise your hand if you've done like congregational singing, like in sacrament meeting or in like a young women's class or something, if you've led some singing like that. Okay. Okay. Has anybody led a choir? Like a word choir or anything? Okay. Does anybody currently have a calling, a music calling that involves conducting? Okay. What's your calling?
I'm a word chorister, but I'm about to be the word music director.
Okay. Great. 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 Okay. Awesome. So we're kind of starting from some basics and then building up from there today. I have a roll that is going around, so make sure you write your email address, and I'll be able to send you handouts and links afterward, okay? So you have a handout that we're going to be following along with, and that's going to help me stay organized. This first page, I've got some basics of music that you can refer to. I'm going into this assuming that you know these themes, but if you don't, there's a reference, so you know what we're talking about. Or maybe if it's been a while, there's a little review, okay? Just looking over that quickly, are there any quick questions before we move forward? I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but if you've like never seen some of these things before, we can talk for a quick second. All right, moving on. Let's go to page 2. We're going to talk about tempo markings in the music. So tempo literally means time. It's a fancy Italian music word, okay? And it's the speed of the music, how fast or slow it's going. And so the tempo is going to be indicated at the top of the page, at the top of the hymn. And it's going to be given as a number range. So you can, if you go back to the first page, you can see the tempo marking there, and it says 96 to 112. That's beats per minute. So if you have a metronome, like a metronome app on your phone, that's the number range that you're going to be looking at. You'll just set it at 96 or 100, somewhere in that range. And that's how fast you go, okay? So I recommend trying to stay in kind of that upper range of the number, because I feel like congregational singing tends to drag and we tend to get really slow and it can get boring. So if you can stay in kind of that upper part of the range, but largely, I'll be honest, largely your tempo is going to be determined by your organist and how fast they want to take it. So you can kind of coordinate with them. Because if they're not feeling super comfortable on a hymn, they might choose a slower speed, and you're just going to follow that, okay? So you can practice at home with a metronome. You can find the recordings of the hymns on the church app or the church website, and you can kind of practice along with those recordings. It's a great way to prep for, Sunday, and also kind of get a feel for the speed. There's also a style indicated at the top of the hymn that can help you kind of determine the tempo as well. So it might say a word like energetically or joyfully, and so you might choose a more fast tempo. But if it says like solemnly or gently, you might choose a slower speed. Okay? Time signatures. This is lots of fun. We get to do some music theory. So time signatures are going to be what determines the beat pattern that you're doing. So you have to know them, even though it's boring. I think it's fun, but I'm a music nerd. But so at the very beginning of the hymn, you'll see some numbers stacked on top of each other. So on this first page, you can see again that example at the very beginning of the line. It says 4 with a 4 on the bottom. That's your time signature. And the top number tells you how many beats are going to be in each measure, okay? So in this example, there's 4. 4 beats in a measure, okay? That's important because that tells you on this next page which way you're going to be waving your hand, okay? The bottom number tells you which kind of note will get 1 count, okay? So, for example, this 4 on the bottom indicates a quarter note. So if we pretend, you see this? I thought about bringing a whiteboard in here, but I didn't want to. Okay, so we're in 4/4 time. This tells us there's 4 beats in a measure, right? This bottom note, if we pretend it's a fraction with a 1 on top, can I write this upside down? Okay, if we pretend it's a fraction with a 1 on top, it's 1/4, okay? Another way of saying 1/4 is quarter, so a quarter note, okay? That's our code. All right, if it was an 8 on the bottom, it would be an eighth note, right? If it was a 16 on the bottom, it would be a 16th note. If it's a 2 on the bottom, it would be a half note, okay? So another way of writing this 4/4 time is 4 quarter notes in a measure, okay? And actually, in some music they do write it that way. I know it's kind of common in French music. So 4 quarter notes in a measure, okay?
Like music theory, I love music, but music theory is always where I get lost, which is why I am here.
Yes.
So if you look at the example out here, right, there's only 3 notes in there, but there's 4 beats in the measure.
Yes.
So that's where
that's where we do the math. Yep. So that's where math comes in. So it's going to be 4 quarter notes in a measure or the equivalent. Okay? So yes, that adds up to 4. So we've got the half note, that's 2 counts. 2 quarters, so adding all together equals 4. So it's not necessarily 4 notes, 4 counts in a measure that will equal 4 quarter notes if you add them together. Yeah? Yeah. Great. You got it. You got it. Yes. I know. That's why musicians are good at math. Yes. Musicians are good at math and are good at fractions and stuff. Okay. All right. So, I'm not really going to go too much into all these individual time signatures, but it's there for reference. The hymns themselves will be in 3 or 4 or 2 or 6. We don't have any in 5. We don't have any that are in 1. So 2, 3, 4, 4, 6. Okay? All right. So let's talk about your hand and arm position when you are conducting the congregation. You're going to use your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, use your right hand. If you're left-handed, use your left. Okay? And that's enough. You don't have to have a baton. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just use your hand, okay? You're going to have your arm, your elbow's kind of 90 degrees. Your forearm is pretty flat. Your hand is going to be an extension of your forearm, okay? And your palm is just flat, like this, okay? You can have your thumb kind of extended a little, so it kind of looks like this, but you're straight down towards the ground. This is your home center, okay? Now you're going to be moving it all around, but this is where you're coming back to, okay? This is how they teach the hand shape at BYU. So if you see anybody who's gone to BYU in the past like 20 years, this is how they're going to have their hand. Some people like to have their hand like this or like different positions, but I've found that this is really clear because it's like one line. And there's not like extra bends or whatever. It's really clear where the beat is. And so that's why I choose to do this. And so I'm teaching you. You can create your own little variation if you want, but I recommend starting here and branching out from there, okay? The goal is to be just really clear and concise, and I feel like this reaches that goal. So the movement is going to come from your elbow, so we're not doing upper arm stuff, maybe a little as we're going side to side, but we're moving from our elbow, and the wrist is kind of flexible, so it's not really rigid. Okay, it's kind of reacting a little to what's happening here, but it's also not too fluffy because we want to be really clear where that beat is happening, okay? So flexible wrist, like we got a puppet string here, but the motion is coming from the elbow. And then you want to keep your beats in sort of a window around here. So not below the waist. If you're going down here, nobody's going to see it. If you're below the music stand, nobody can see it. I recommend having the music stand about waist level. Okay, and that can be your reminder if you're not going to go below there, okay? If you get outside of this box, you know, then nobody's going to see it, okay? Okay, let's talk about beat patterns, okay? This is where the time signature stuff is important, so we know which pattern to do. When we're talking about beats, the ictus is a fancy music word for just the bottom of the beat, where the beat happens in this beat pattern that we're doing in the air. So if you want to feel really fancy and show off to your friends, you can use that word, okay? So for example, it's where the beat happens, like here, 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 and here, okay? So it's where the beat happens, where that little bounce happens, is the ictus. So we want that to be really clear where the beat is happening, okay? We'll get into the actual beat patterns in 1 second. The upbeat is the word we use to describe the very last beat of a measure, okay? The upbeat. And the reason we call it the upbeat is because it's always up, okay? And then there's the downbeat, which is the first beat of every measure. The first beat of every measure is always down. It's always down, and it's always right here in the center, okay? The upbeat is always from the outside going up like this. So if you're left-handed, you're going from the left up and inward. Right-handed, you're going out and in. Always. Whether it's in 3, whether it's in 2, whether it's in 6, it doesn't matter. That last beat is always going to be out, going up. And if it's not, then you're like backwards or something. If you end up like 1, 2, 3, okay, you're flip-flop. Okay? This is for clarity. There's so much going on as a musician, and there's so much to think about that if we can make something consistent, it's going to help. So we always know that beat is the last beat's going up and in. Okay? So let's look at some of these beat patterns when we're in 2. So that could be 2 4-time or 2 2-time. We're going to do this pattern here where we're going down and out like a backwards J and then coming up again. So down and out and then back in. Okay, do that with me, everybody. Get your dominant hand, okay? Have your palm flat and we're going down and out and back up. Down, up. So this is beat 1, beat 2, beat 1, beat 2. If you're left-handed, it's like this. 2, 1, 2. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So you have that ictus bounce on beat 1, and then there's like a little rebound. Okay. So 1 is at the bottom, 1, and you come up a little as a rebound. So 1, and then 2. There's also a little bounce at the beat, and then keep going. Yeah? So you can see on the diagram there's a little circle and a number. That's where like the actual beat count is happening. And then there's kind of a follow through after. Okay? So for example, this would be like praise to the man. Do, 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 do. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Any questions on 2 pattern? That one's probably the easiest. Now we're going to do 3. So it's going to be down, out, up. Okay? Down, out, up. So down, out, up. Down, out, up. And then we're having that little bounce at the beat, that little rebound. Okay? So, come follow me. 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? 1, 2. You got it. That one's easy. Okay. 4/4 time, when we have 4 beats in a measure, it's going to be down, in, out, up. Okay? It's like the 3/4, but we're going in first, and then we go out and up. Okay? So down, in, out, up, down, in, out, up. Good. When you're doing congregational singing, you really just need to use one hand. But if you want to practice both right now, that's fine. That comes in handy with choirs and stuff. You'll use those hands at times. Okay? Down, in, out, up. Down, in, out, up. Good. So, questions?
Just a quick comment. I think for something that helps me with when I'm trying to conduct is all the different time signatures. They're setting you up to where the final 2 beats are out and up. So whether it's 2/4 or 2/2, you're just doing that out, up. But even in 3/4, you're going down, and then the last 2 is out and up, so that it helps you get ready for that. And then in 4/4, it throws one over here so that you can get out and up. And then even in 6, whatever you're doing with your other parts, the last 2 is out and up.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. That's a great explanation. Okay, so in 4/4 we could do come, you sing. Do that with me. Ready? Come, you sing. Da, 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 in, out, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Yep, you got it. Okay. All right, let's do 6. So sometimes we do 6 in 2 if it's a faster beat, okay? Yeah, that one does switch around. Wait. Yeah. To remember. Yep. Great. So this is a great question. This hymn is a little tricky because it does change between 3 and 4. So what you could do in your hymn book is kind of circle that 3 in red or the 4 in red, or highlight it in your own part, not in the church one. But just to kind of have a visual reminder. And then another way you could also mark it is there's like a shorthand for time changes in music. We use it a lot in like orchestral playing. So you could write a shape by the number. So for example, if it's in 4, you're going to do a square because it has 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's a quick visual that you don't have to like actually read words. Okay. And then for the 3/4, you could also just put like a triangle. So again, a quick visual to remind you, oh, it's in 3. Okay. So let's do this one together. If you want to pull out a hymn book at hymn 30, and we'll just do a couple lines of this because, yeah, it does get kind of crazy. Most of the hymns don't change back and forth like this, fortunately. Okay. All right, ready? Here we go. And come, you sing, no sin or labor fear. Now we're going to be in 3. With joy when you raise 4. Now to you, this journey may appear. Now we're in 3. Grace shall be as the day. Okay, great. So, you got it. Good question.
Can I add something real quick?
Okay.
One thing that may help, especially for those that are new to conducting. If you notice, even though the time signature changed, the speed and the beat did not change. So like we're still counting at the same speed. We're just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I didn't. So as long as your arm's moving at the same beat, all you have to remember is the 4.
A different shape.
Or the 3.
Yes. Yep. Our tempo didn't change. That was our fancy music word. Our tempo didn't change. All the beats are happening at the same speed. There's just a different number of them. Okay. All right. Let's talk about 6. So it can be in 2 if it's fast. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Try that with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're just doing the 2 pattern, but we're dividing the measure into 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Now, if it's a slower one, we'll do this fancy pattern here. Okay, where you go down, in, then you go out, out, up. Okay, so let's do that one more time slowly. We go down, in, out, out, up. Okay, down, in, out, out, up. Yeah, that's it. Okay, we're gonna move forward.
Sorry, I have another question. Like, is there anything wrong with doing just a 2, 3 times? I mean, like, 'cause it's like it's the 1, 2.
Great question. So with
and then
6, it can be divided in by 2 or by 3. So how do we know? Do we do it in 3, 4 times, or do we do it in 2 times? You know, if it's a 6 measure. Okay, is that your question?
No, well,
Oh,
no,
okay.
like, is there just anything like? I mean, should I avoid doing the 3 and like and do the 6? I mean, because I've never actually conducted in 6 because like I get all confused because it's like okay 1, 2 like and I'm so
So you're
focused on
doing it in
that.
3?
I just do it in 3 like so
1,
like
2,
should I
3,
not
4,
be doing
5,
that
6.
or like is it
I would do it in
1,
2.
2,
Let me tell you why. If the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is too much, then you'll do it in 2. And the reason is when you have a 6 measure, it's actually 2 beats of 3, like 2 groups of 3. Otherwise, it would be in 3, 4 times if we wanted 3 beats that were divided into like 2 8 notes.
like right because I had seen it like like where it was kind of a larger like 1, 2 1, 2, 3 then a smaller.
Oh, that pattern. Oh, okay.
Like so it's kind of
I
like
see what you're
that.
saying.
Like so
There
like,
is a second option. I misunderstood the question. Okay. So there is a second option that I didn't put on this handout of doing a 6 measure as a big 3 pattern and then a smaller 3 pattern. Okay. And so that is an option if that's easier for you than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So it would look like a big 3 and then a small 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So that might be a lot simpler to do.
all right, thank you. Yeah, because I
Yes.
get all confused. It's like
Yep.
discombobulated
And that's
when I'm all
perfectly fine.
nervous.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
all right,
perfectly fine.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So let's turn to page 4. Some general tips for congregational singing. Find the page in the hymn book early. Okay. It's stressful for me as an organist as I'm playing the introduction and the chorister stands up and they're flipping and trying to find the page. Okay. So be ready, okay? Just after one hymn is done, flip and find the next one, and it's ready for you, okay? And then you don't have to conduct during the introduction. I've seen some people who are newer to leading congregations kind of not sure what to do. So during the organ introduction, or piano, whoever's playing, you don't have to conduct. You're just standing there at ready position. They're kind of establishing their tempo. We talked about that earlier. They were going to kind of lead what tempo they want to take. And your purpose as the director is to help the congregation know when to start and to feel confident to come in and start and to stay together. So one way you can do that is smiling, looking up while you're conducting. You're going to have to look down sometimes. You may not know all the words, okay? But glancing up, making some eye contact here and there, so you're not just like this, okay? So, and also singing along. Now, if you don't feel comfortable singing, sorry, do it anyway. No, at least mouth the words, okay? At the very least, because otherwise, if you're just like, hey, let's sing now, they don't know where you're at. So that's going to prompt them to sing and to feel comfortable, like they know when to start, okay? And then you're also going to bring them in and tell them when to start. So we're going to talk about cueing the singer, okay? I call this a preparatory beat, or a cue. And you're going to start conducting one beat before they sing. So if the hymn starts on beat 1 of the measure, okay, you're going to give the beat before they sing, okay? So let's practice that. Let's pretend we're singing, I am a child of God. That starts on beat 1, okay? So we're going to give beat 4, because we're in 4/4 time. We're going to give beat 4, and then we sing, okay? Ready to try that with me? Ready? 4, I am a child of God. Yeah? Does that make sense? If we were in 3/4 time, we know now all of the last beats of every time signature happen this way, right? Okay? So if we're in 3/4 time, it's going to be right? So one more time in 3/4, ready? Come follow me. Yeah? For the preparatory beat, yes. But then your beat 1 is back home. Yep. Now, sometimes, okay, are we clear first before we move on what the preparatory beat is and how to do that to help them know when to start? So the organ's playing the introduction. Come follow me. What? I'm not sure I understand the question. The examples below? Yes, we're getting to these. These are different than what we just did. So yeah, we can talk about these next.
Before anybody sings, this is like the signal to say we're about to start. Right. Otherwise, nobody knows when we're actually.
Yeah. So what we just practiced was if the hymn starts on the very first beat of a measure, like "Come Follow Me." What is that one? 116. So if we take a look at 116, you can see that very first note is on beat 1 of the measure. So we're going to start. This is what we were just practicing. Start on beat 3 as your preparatory, and then singing on beat 1. So this one doesn't have what you're talking about, which is coming next. So we'll get that. Okay. Any questions on what we've just done on preparing and singing on beat 1? Now we're going to get into something a little trickier, which is what he's asking. When it's the hymn doesn't start on beat 1, okay? There's a beat before, or a couple notes before, and we call that a pickup note or an upbeat. How do we conduct that. The rule is the same. You're still going to give one beat before they start singing. But it's going to be a different beat this time, okay? Because they might start singing on beat 3, so you're going to start on beat 2 as your preparatory beat. So the rule's the same. You're still giving one count before they start singing, okay? But now we've just shifted which count that is, okay? So how do you know how to do that? Let's practice. Okay, so let's look at our first example here on page 4, number 187. God loved us, so he sent his son. You can see it's in 2/2 time. There's 2 counts in the measure. The half note gets 1 count. So this pickup note here is a half note, so it gets 1 count. So we're conducting in 2 because we're in 2/2 time. Okay, we're conducting in 2. The half note gets 1 count, so there's 2 half notes in a measure. 1 half note, 2 half notes, 1 half note. That's our unit of measure, is the half note. So our pickup is 1 count happening on beat 2. Okay? So we're just doing a little math to figure this out. Okay? Are we clear on how we know that this half note is 1 count? And how we know that it's happening on beat 2. I can explain that again. Yeah. Yep, we're just doing basic math. So 2/2 time, our unit of measure is a half note. Okay, 2 half notes in measure. Each half note is 1 count. Okay, we have this half note here as our pickup beat, so it's going to be 1 count happening on beat 2. Okay, so this hymn, God loved us so he sent his son. Okay, so the organ is playing the introduction, right? And they're holding that last note. What beat are we going to give as the preparatory beat? It's not going to be beat 2 because they're singing on beat 2. What is our preparation beat that we're starting to lead on? You could kind of sync it up with the introduction as they play that last note. But I would let them kind of hold it for a second. It doesn't have to be exactly in time after that. But yes, essentially the last note of the introduction is going to be the beat 1, and you're doing this. Okay, but I don't want to get too confusing on that. But so let's say the organ is playing the introduction and they're holding that last note of the introduction. Okay, you're going to give beat 1, and everybody starts singing on beat 2. Okay, so try that with me. We're going to give beat 1, and then we're going to sing God Love It. Okay, ready? And 1. God loves us so he sent his son. Okay, yeah, you got it. Yeah, does that make sense? We're just doing the same thing we did before. We're giving 1 count before they start. Yeah. So this next one, number 5, is a little trickier because we're in 2/2, but we only have a quarter note. So that means it's half of a beat. Yeah. So that's like, how do they know when to start? If I'm giving them beat 1, if they come in on the end of the second half of beat 2, like that's tricky. What I would do is I would give 2 and. I would do beat 2 like twice. 2 and. So you're giving like a half beat pickup. So the organ does their introduction. Da, 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 hold. 2. High on the mountain top. So that pickup you're gonna conduct a little faster. You're doing the quarter notes. 2. High on the mountain top, and then you're into those half notes again. Okay, try it with me, everybody. So the organ's holding da da da. 2. High on the mountain top. Yeah. That's probably the trickiest one we'll do. Just kidding, there's actually one that's even trickier. But let's go to the 3/4 time. Now let us rejoice. Okay, this is starting on beat 3 of the measure. Okay, so which beat are we going to give as the preparation beat? We're going to give beat 2. Okay, always doing one beat before. Okay, so I'm trying to think how the end of this one goes for some reason. I can't think of it. So the organ plays the introduction and plays the last note and hold. We're going to do beat 2, and then they start singing on 3. Okay? Right? So try it with me. Here we go. The organ's holding 2. Now let's just rejoice in the... Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions on the 3/4 with the pickup? This is good stuff. Okay. All creatures of our God and King were in 3, but now we're in 3/2. Okay. So we have a half note pickup, and this is happening on beat 3. So we're going to give beat 2 as the preparation. Okay. So all creatures of our God and King. Okay. So the organ does the introduction, holds the last note. You give 2. All creatures of our God and King. Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. Let's skip Lead Kindly Light for a minute. That one's weird. Okay, let's go to the next page. Page 5. How firm a foundation. So we're in 4/4 time. We have a pickup happening on beat 4. We're going to give beat 3 before it. So, how firm a foundation, right? So the organ plays the introduction, holds that last one. We're going to go 3. How firm a foundation, down, in, out, up. Okay? Try that with me one more time. So organ's playing, holds the introduction. We're going to do beat 3. Ready? How firm a foundation. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. It came upon the midnight clear. We have an 8th note pickup. So this one. So remember our pattern: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the other one, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's the pickup happening on beat 6. So we're going to give beat 5. So either way, whichever pattern you're choosing, it's going to be 5, and then they come in on 6. Okay? So the organ's playing the introduction, holds the last note, and we go 5. Yeah? 5. Yep. So always just giving one beat before. Okay, awesome. Same thing on 6 beat, just seeing the matches love. So it's the same pattern. Okay. So when you're giving, when you get to the end of a verse and you're going to go to the next verse, you're going to cut off the singing. I'm going to tell them when to stop. So we do that by, we have our hand here, right? You're just going to do kind of an upward oval and come back down to home, okay? And that's when they cut off, is when you come back down. Yep. So that's the easiest way. Some people do like wrist flicks or like fancy things, but it's kind of hard. Like where is that? You know, at what point in that circle am I cutting off? You know. So just when you come back home, boom, it's really quick. Okay. And then you're going to cue the next verse, doing the exact same thing you did on the first verse. Okay. So if we're doing I am a child of God, okay, to live with him someday, right? And you might even choose to just go day and just kind of hold it on that last measure if you want, okay? You cut them off, do a little circle thing, right? Okay? Everybody try to cut off. Boom. Yep, just make an oval. and come back down. Yeah, that's it, that's it. Okay, and then you're gonna give beat 4 and go again. It's the same pickup that you did, or the same preparation cue you did on the first verse. You're just doing a cutoff, boom. Okay, same thing. Don't be afraid to leave a little space in between the verses. That allows the organist to make any adjustments they need to. They might be changing buttons and stuff. So it's fine to have a little breath. We cut them off. Okay? So don't feel like it has to be. Okay? And that gives yourself a chance to relax too. Have a little breath. Okay? So you're doing the cutoff, a little pause, preparation beat, go. Next verse. Yeah? Cut off, little breath, preparation, boom. Okay. All right, let's talk about fermatas. Fermatas are, I should have put it in here what it looks like. It looks like a little eyeball. It's like an upside down U and like a dot. So turn to number 68 in your hymn book. Okay, you see a mighty fortress is our God. Above that note, you see what's called a fermata, a little zoop with a boop. A zoop with a boop. Okay, this means hold that note. Okay, stay on that note longer than you normally would. And we have these a lot in our hymn book, actually. So what you're going to do is you're going to just hold that count wherever it is in the pattern that you're doing. Whatever that beat is, you're going to hold it. Just freeze. Freeze your hand there. You do that beat and then you stay. Okay? And that tells everybody, wait a second. Okay? And then you're going to give that same beat again to move forward. And then just keep going. So let's look at what that means. This is happening on beat 3 in our example on our mighty fortress. So we're going to go, is our God, and you're freezing on beat 3, okay? And you can just say the word hold in your head or just kind of feel it, okay? So, is our God, hold, 3. Da, da, da. So you just do that beat again and keep going. Da, da, da. Hold, boom. Da. Yeah, you kind of have to go backwards in order to hit that again. So you kind of reverse, boom, and do it again. Okay, so let's do that one more time. Is our God, hold, boom. Da, 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 hold, same thing, boom. Da, 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 da. Okay? And let's see, later there's one that happens on beat 1. So on like the 4th line, he overcometh all. Same thing. You're on beat 1. You freeze. You beat 1 again. Da, da, da. Okay. So whatever beat the fermata is on, freeze. Do that same beat again and keep going. It's actually quite simple if you know what you're doing. Yeah. So I recommend practicing, if you know the hymn ahead of time, practicing the fermatas. Do it in a mirror, so you can get used to what that looks like.
If we're doing is our God and then we do it again and just keep going, I think that confuses me because if you do it again, will that again be the capital A, and then if you're coming up for tower, we shouldn't be down for tower. So like we'll use the
So yes, so where we're doing that beat twice is the second time we do it, it's kind of the cutoff of the fermata. So we're not adding a beat in the measure. We're just saying, and the fermata's done, and keep going. You're just kind of giving a cue to go onward. So yeah, so we're not adding another count or another word or whatever. Where we're doing it twice, that beat twice, the second time becomes the cutoff, that preparatory to we're going on now. Yes. Yes, exactly. Okay. Yep, yep. Okay. So, extra credit. This is once you feel really comfortable with the stuff we've already talked about, you can start thinking about other things like minimizing unimportant beats. Okay, one example of this would be hymn 246. I'll just show you real quick, but don't worry, don't stress about this. 246, the last note of the last measure of every line is a whole note. And they're just holding that note. They don't need 1, 2, 3, 4 every time. So you can hit that first beat, and then the next ones might be kind of smaller. And then you kind of give the beat to the next measure. So that's, we call it extra credit. It's not necessary, but it's kind of nice to illustrate what's going on in the music, and you don't have to count out every single beat super big. So, marching as to war, little stick. Da, 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 on before, little, da, da. Yeah, okay. You could, if you feel like it's important or it's helpful for them to know when to change notes, like with the cross of Jesus. Yeah, that can act as almost like a little cue for when they're changing notes if you wanted to do it on the half note. But definitely I would on the whole note. Okay, the next extra credit would be if the last note of song is just a held note and they're not, changing throughout that measure, you could just beat that last measure and just kind of just freeze your hand there and then cut off and go on. So this 246 is actually a good example of this. So going on before, cut off. Go to the next verse, okay? So it's an option. Don't stress over it, but it's something to get to as you master the other things, okay? Weird stuff, there are a couple of hymns where the first beat of the hymn is empty. It's a rest. So for that, let's look at 82. So for this one, the organ is playing that first beat, but the congregation is resting. So it's a little tricky. I would give the preparation beat as a beat 4. You're cueing that beat 1, but it's empty because you want to bring the organist in on that downbeat, right? So you're going to give beat 4, they play on 1, and then you do the other beat. This is where it's important to be singing, to be smiling, to be making mouth movements with your congregation so they know when to start. Because it's a little tricky, okay? And then another example is like 37 does the same. Okay, so 37 is a little different because nobody is singing or playing on the first beat. So in this case, I would treat it as if beat 1 is the first beat of the song, okay? Even though it's empty and it's a rest. So you're going to give the preparation beat on the pickup, and then you're beating beat 1, but it's empty, yeah? Boom. So 1, 3 days. Yeah. So it's kind of weird. We don't sing that one very often, so we don't really have to worry about it. Yeah. It's like a pickup. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, great question. So it comes down to math. If there is a pickup note, I think you were referencing this earlier also. If there's like a pickup note where you have like just beat 4 in that very first measure, the other 3 beats of that measure have to exist somewhere. So they're going to be the very last measure of the song. That last measure of the song is only going to have 3 beats. Okay? In this case, the last measure of this song, they didn't want to only have 1 count in the measure, so they made it a full measure. And that's why this first measure has all the counts instead of just being a pickup. This is advanced music theory stuff, guys. Okay. Okay, we're going to go a little more into choral conducting, conducting in choirs. The things we've already learned, the basics we've already learned, carry on into choral conducting, and now we're going to go just a little bit deeper. So if you need to stand up and stretch for a second while I keep talking, do that. If you need to go get some donuts, some oranges, go ahead and do that, okay? They're just right back there on that table, okay? So I want to emphasize that conducting a choir does not require you to be perfect. It doesn't require you to know what you're doing at first. What it does require is an enthusiasm, a passion, a desire to learn, okay? You don't have to know everything. You just have to be willing to ask questions, willing to learn, willing to get better every time, okay? The first time I conducted a choir, I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. But I learned as I went. This will hopefully give you a little bit of preparation ahead of time to give you a foundation. So anyway, so I don't want you to feel intimidated about the idea of doing a choir. Anybody can do it. You just have to be willing to learn as you go. Okay. Some things you can do before the rehearsal. Before your first rehearsal even happens, there's stuff that you on your end need to be doing. So preparing your score, meaning your music, okay? You're going to mark things like when you want them to breathe, to when you want them to not breathe. You have to know that in order to tell them that, okay? And it also helps if you have the kind of sheet music that's like, you know, a PDF download or something that you're going to be photocopying, it helps to write that in first and then photocopy it. And you don't have to wait rehearsal time. So you have to know that before. You can also mark in your part when there is a break or a fermata. We already talked about what a fermata is. When there's a tempo change, when you're speeding up or slowing down, okay? Some shorthand for that is if it's getting faster, you can do a little arrow to the right, or if it's slowing down, do an arrow to the left. Again, the more information you can consume without actual reading words, the better. So pictures and stuff are really helpful. Or if it's slowing down, you can do like a squiggle, like that, like a ritardando. So it's just shorthand that can be helpful. You can mark in different time changes as the time signature changes. We talked about this earlier. So doing some shorthand like a square for 4/4 time, a triangle for 3, or if it's in 5, you can do like a little house shape. Again, just information without reading words is really helpful. Notice any key changes. Notice any weird stuff. Okay, you can highlight the key changes or whatever. Just study your score. You need to know it before you can teach it. Look at things like when you need to cue certain parts, because when we're doing congregational singing, for the most part, they're singing at the same time. When we're doing choir stuff, sometimes different parts start at different times. So you can highlight that. You can mark. I like to use different colors sometimes, like sopranos are red, altos are orange, whatever, and just kind of circle that note. Or you can just highlight it or put like an S next to the sopranos or A for the altos. Look at, diction, like we're doing in the state choir, we're doing a song called Hosanna, and it has Hosanna all out throughout the whole song. And I had to decide, how are we going to say Hosanna? We're going to say Hosanna. And so knowing that ahead of time can help your choir learn it, from the get-go. and then marking any phrasing, like we want this line to go here or there or whatever. So all that is to say, study your score by yourself before the rehearsal. You're also going to do lots of listening, okay? This is under preparing yourself for rehearsal. Listen, listen, listen. Practice conducting to a recording. Maybe you can find multiple different recordings, different interpretations, different tempos and stuff, and kind of get a feel for how you want to do it. Practice conducting while you're humming along, so not with a recording, and that can help you feel like, oh, I actually want to take more time here, so you can kind of be humming while you're practicing conducting. Record a video of yourself conducting. That might feel a little weird. It might be weird to watch yourself, but it's very helpful because you can see what they're seeing. Okay? It's different when they're looking at you from that angle, and then you can see, oh, that wasn't clear, and you can change things and improve. Okay, and then it's also helpful to learn each individual part. I know this is a lot of prep work, but it makes a difference. If you learn the soprano part, you learn the alto part, you learn the tenor part, you learn the bass part. Okay? If you can, if you have time, I know a lot of us are doing this just on the side, trying to squeeze it in our life. But if you can, it's so helpful because you know what it's supposed to sound like, right? There are, sometimes if it's a really commonly used arrangement, somebody might have already made a YouTube video with just the soprano part for like a practice track. You might be able to find something like that. You can share that with your choir and they can practice at home, but you can also listen to it and be like, oh, that's what the soprano sounds like. Okay, so when you're doing a choir, are you going to do one hand? Are you going to do two hands? Do you need a baton? Like, what are the rules? You can do what you want. But in general, batons are usually used for like an orchestra, but some choirs do use them, and so that's kind of up to you and what you like. So in general, for choral singing, they tend to just do a hand, like we've been doing for the congregational singing that we talked about. So you're going to use your dominant hand to do the beat. This is always going to be like your motor. Keep the music alive. You got to keep that beat going with your dominant hand. Your non-dominant hand is going to come into play with choir stuff. We didn't really do anything with it with congregation singing, right? But it's going to do cues, like maybe I'm doing this beat with my right hand, and maybe sopranos are about to start, so I'm going to give them a cue with just that hand. Okay? So that's where that can come in. It can also show things like dynamics, which actually I might have that a little bit later. So we'll talk about that in a second. But it gives other information, additional information. Okay? So your dominant hand keeps going all the time, keeps that beat going. The other hand adds information. Okay? We'll talk a little more about the specifics of that on this next page, page 7. Okay. So cueing an entrance, similar to what we talked about with congregational singing, you can give a preparation beat, the beat before the section starts. So if they're starting on beat 1, you're going to give that pickup before with your non-dominant hand, okay? So you've got your beat going with your dominant hand, and that just keeps going the whole time. And then maybe I need to bring in sopranos, so I'm going to go with my other hand, boom, okay? So that's where your non-dominant hand comes in. But the principle is the same as the cueing we talked about with congregational singing, just giving that beat before they come in, okay? So where it gets tricky, though, is there's different sections and there's different places that they're coming in, and so that's where highlighters are handy and color coding and stuff, okay? And then practicing in front of a mirror, okay? So let's see. To begin, the very beginning of a choir piece, I recommend giving a full measure before the piano starts or the choir starts or whoever starts, okay? Give a full measure to establish your tempo, and then the piano starts or whatever, okay? So if it's a piece that has a pickup, like it starts on beat 4, give a full measure and then the the next measure that has a pickup. Does that make sense? So you're establishing the tempo with an empty measure, and then you have the 1, 2, 3, and then they start on beat 4. Okay. So let's see. You're also going to, when different sections are coming in at different times, you're going to kind of look the direction of the section. So however your choir is set up, you just need to know where everybody's sitting and memorize that. And yeah, you're going to, so say I'm bringing in the basses, my basses are over here. I'm, leading and everything, and then I'm going to look at their direction. I might even pivot my body a little bit, not too much because they still need to see what I'm doing, but you might just kind of lean this way, make some eye contact with the general section. You might nod in their direction. You can cue with just your head. You don't even have to bring in this hand, right? Okay, you can cue with your breath, okay? Even if I wasn't conducting, I could cue with just my breath, okay? So like if we want to practice this with me, okay? Try it. So let's sing, I am a child of God, and I'm going to bring you in just by breathing, okay? Ready? I am a child of God. So yeah, you can use your breath to help them know when to come in. And it also helps them breathe together too. You're modeling for them when to breathe. So, okay. So those are all great for helping them know when to come in. And you can mouth the words or sing the words with them also. Just help them feel extra confident that they're coming in at the right time. There's going to be a lot going on, so you want to feel super secure. Okay. Fermatas, same as congregational singing. Just hold it and then keep going. Sometimes in choir music, you might hold and then actually have a cutoff, and there might be a pause or a break, and then you keep going. So that might be a small difference. Just depends on the song you're doing. So something you can show with your non-dominant hand is when you want them to hold a note, you would show it by having your palm facing upward. So you're going like this, and you're like, hold this note. Like, don't breathe right now, okay? Like, I am a child of God, and I don't want you to breathe after God, okay? I am a child of God, and you're kind of showing them, don't breathe. Okay, and then we talked about cutoffs, so I'm not going to talk about that again. But in choir music, just keep in mind you might be cutting off one section over here and then bringing in a section over here, and then so the principles are the same. The method of doing the pickups and the cueing is the same, and the cutoff is the same as congregational singing. The trick with the choir singing is adding it together in different orders and different, it can kind of pile up all at once. So I recommend slowing it down when you're practicing at home, and doing small chunks. If there's a lot going on in a certain part of a song, like maybe I have to cut off the sopranos and then bring in the basses or whatever, just do that measure. Just work on that small chunk and do it slowly and do it in front of a mirror until you feel like you got it. And then you can try it a little faster, okay? So do it in small chunks. Make it a little bit simpler by going slowly. Okay. Dynamics you can also do with your non-dominant hand. So if you want this certain section to sing louder, you're going to have your palm up, and you might be going like this, or maybe even wiggling your fingers. Like, come on, sopranos, I need more, okay? Or basses, I need more, bring me. Or the opposite. You're way too loud, okay? Come down. You can show a crescendo by moving from down here and going up. So, like, come on, everybody, we're growing right here. Or the opposite. Okay, we're getting closer, okay? So, let's see. Okay, style and interpretation. You can show with your dominant hand, the one that's doing the beat, okay? You can show the style that's being sung. So if it's a really smooth line, and I want to show that to my choir, then my beat pattern is going to reflect that. So I'm not going to be super bouncy. I'm going to be more smooth. Okay, because I want them to connect these notes. Okay, and then it changes, and now we're bouncy again. So then I'm going to show that in my pattern. Okay, so if I want something like super, super pointed, I might get like big facial expressions too. Okay. If I do a large pattern, I want you to be loud, okay? If I want you to be quiet, I'm going to be small, okay? And you can even show that with your body language and your facial expressions too. It's like this whole, all these messages you're sending through all your body language. Okay, so we're just going to finish with some rehearsal tips, and then we'll open up for questions. So one of your jobs as a choir conductor is to help your choir learn the music, okay? You're not just waving your hands for the actual performance. You're there all along the way, teaching them the music, okay? So I recommend being really mindful of the music that you choose, that it's appropriate for the skill level of your choir. Now that might be hard going into it because you might not know who's going to show up. Maybe you're just barely starting a ward choir and it's, you might have 3 people show up, or you don't even know what to expect. So that can be tricky. I would say err on the side of something more simple if that's the case. If you're just getting things off the ground and you're maybe not going to have a lot of people to begin with, there are some great options for, it's called Hymnplicity, where it's basically you sing the hymn from the hymn book, but there's a piano accompaniment that makes it sound fancy. So you're just doing the simple hymn from the book, but it might be like, okay, only men sing on the first verse and only women sing on the second, and stuff like that, and it just spices it up a little. So that might be a good option if you kind of are just starting out with a choir and you're not really sure what to expect. But if you get really over-ambitious and choose a piece that's really, really hard, people might stop coming. They're going to be like, this is frustrating, this is too hard, and it's not fun anymore, okay? So you got to find a good balance between songs that are going to, stretch them a little, but be within like that good range of like not being frustrating so that they keep coming. And that's going to become easier as you go, as you get to know your group more. And when I first started the state choir in the state, I had no idea what to expect. But now I've been doing it several years, so I know. Like, I've got a good idea of what kind of pieces to learn. So it gets easier with time. Okay, and then as you are learning a piece, I recommend thinking of it in layers. And this can help you plan your rehearsal time. So the first layer is learning the notes. We're not worried about the text yet. We're not worried about dynamics yet. We're just figuring out what the notes are. And this layer happens in different phases. And so I've got some ideas here. I'm not going to really talk about it, but you can read through some stages of that first layer. And then the next layer, you're going to think about unifying the sound. Now that we know the notes, let's figure out how our vowels can come together. What's our diction? And as we do that, it's going to help us tune the notes more, okay? So we're unifying as a choir. We're not worried about what the notes are anymore. We can start thinking about that. And then the last layer is going to be the musical layer, where we're talking about expression and dynamics and where is each phrase going. And so we're adding that layer on. So I do recommend in rehearsals starting from the end of a piece and doing a small chunk and then working backwards, because this can help avoid the pitfall of starting at the beginning of a piece and over-rehearsing the beginning, and then the ending doesn't get as much time or work. And also it keeps you from starting at the beginning and then just kind of running and like forgetting to stop and like work on things. And so you work on the end of the piece, and then you go to the chunk before that, and then when you get to that spot where you started and did that last chunk, you're reminded to stop because we already did that. And then you So it kind of keeps you in small chunks and more manageable, so you can really get in and rehearse that section. So that's something that I like to do. This last page has lots of resources. There are free conducting courses on YouTube. There's a Masterful Choral Conducting class through BYU. It's a $50 subscription for the year, so you have access to it for a whole year. And that one's really good. I did it years ago when it was like on DVD. So, but that's really helpful. And then there's some other choir sheet music resources. And so, what questions do you have for me? We talked about a lot of stuff. The main takeaway I want you to have is that you don't have to know it all, but you have to be willing to try and do your best and just keep learning every time. So, no questions? Okay, yes.
All right, so I know that we have like I'm glad that you put this in like the state music library. Right, so how do we know like what is available, or how do we get access to that, like the copies of that and that kind of thing? Like
Yep.
how many copies? Yeah,
Good
like,
question.
all that.
There is a process going on right now of organizing the state music library. We have a lot of music. We had to get a second filing cabinet because we had so much, and guess what? It's already full. So we just had boxes of music everywhere. We have so much, especially Christmas. We have a lot of Christmas stuff. So there is a spreadsheet in existence, but it is very outdated. So my plan is to hire someone, not hire, but get somebody to do that for me, to organize the music and get it in a spreadsheet so people can look and see what we have and how many copies we have. Now, to get access to it, you need somebody with a key to the library. It's here in this building in our library. If you go in the library and kind of around the corner, there's 2 big filing cabinets. So you're welcome to go in there during, church hours when it's open and kind of go through the files. If you're going to check something out, there is a paper on the top where you can write what you have and what you've taken. So you're also welcome to text me anytime and say, hey, can we meet at a church? Or can you get me 3 copies of this and I'll pick it up at your house or whatever. That works too. So definitely use that resource. There's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, any other questions?
For the music in the library, the checking out, is that only for the professionally printed music? But like if it's a song that can be just photocopied, those
Yes.
just,
So if it's like something that's been printed off and it's just a photocopy, you could potentially just make a copy of it and take that. Is that what you're asking?
yeah, versus like checking out music or knowing how many copies you have.
Right. Right. Exactly. So if it's like one that's like professionally printed and bound and stuff, those we're going to have a certain number of copies and we're going to for sure need to get those back. There might be some in there that, are just like photocopies. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thanks for being here. If you have questions at any time, you are preparing for a hymn on Sunday and you're like, how do I do this for Mata or whatever, just reach out to me anytime. I'm Megan Watson. I'm happy to be that resource for you. Okay? Thank you. Thanks for coming.